Que ya viene la revolución, para que se asustan será pa' mejor. Es el pueblo entero el que ya está gritando, ¡viva la revolución!
Iranian nuclear weapons development.
They have turned the island into a communist hellhole.
The experiment in Venezuela has failed completely.
La bestialidad imperialista. Bestialidad que no tiene una frontera determinada ni pertenece a un país determinado. Bestias fueron las hordas hitleristas, como bestias son los norteamericanos hoy, como bestias son los paracaidistas belgas, como bestias fueron los imperialistas franceses en Argelia. Porque es la naturaleza del imperialismo la que bestializa a los hombres, la que la convierte en fieras sedientas de sangre que están dispuestas a degollar, a asesinar, a destruir hasta la última imagen de un revolucionario, de un partidario de un régimen que haya caído bajo su bota o que luche por su libertad. Y la estatua que recuerda a Lumumba, hoy destruida pero mañana reconstruida, nos recuerda también en la historia trágica de ese mártir de la revolución del mundo, que no se puede confiar en el imperialismo, pero ni tantito así, nada.
شعبي بتحبوا مين؟ ردوا بالصوت ملايين، ما بدنا إلا بشار. رح ننتخبك يا بشار. بدنا نحكي بدنا نقول، بدنا أبو حافظ عاطول، والشعب السوري مسؤول وبيعرف مين بيختار. رح ننتخبك يا بشار. الجيش السوري وين ما كان هو لوحدتنا عنوان، عن بلادي سهران ومرابط عالصوت النار. رح ننتخبك يا بشار. أبو حافظ حامية سوريا.
All right, what's up?
With God, Syria, Bashar, long live President Bashar al-Assad of the Syrian Arab Republic. One of my favorite countries, high up on my list of places I want to go to, simply for the fact not only thousands of years of beautiful history, but they're one of the few countries in the world that does not play games. They do not fuck with Israel. They say we do not recognize the settler colonial state of Israel, and we recognize full Palestinian sovereignty. So long live Syria, another victim of color revolution attempts, just like the Islamic revolution of Iran right now, and everything going on. There's so many things going on in the world right now. They're interconnected. The attempted color revolution in Iran, this whole thing with Kanye West and quote-unquote anti-Semitism. We're going to talk about that. Today is episode 96 of Unmasking Imperialism, exposing imperialist propaganda in mainstream media. Today, we are exposing Zionism and its control of mainstream media. During today's episode, we discuss the two faces of Zionism that dominate the media landscape: liberal Zionism and neoconservative Zionism. Both faces serve the interests of Western imperialism and Israeli settler colonialism. We're going to shed light into the Zionist control of news and entertainment industries and how this control is leveraged for their shadowy agendas. What is a revolutionary anti-imperialist analysis of the Kanye situation? We have our own interpretation, our anti-Zionist, anti-imperialist interpretation. We also discuss the weaponization of the term, quote, anti-Semitism as an excuse to censor, repress, ostracize people who are critical of Israel. I've even been criticized of being, quote, anti-Semitic for using the term international bankers, even though it's an objective fact that so many international banking institutions are based in Israel, and Israel is a huge part of the banking industry. So apparently reality is anti-Semitic now. But joining us today is my homie, my comrade, Arturo Hull, a YouTuber and anti-imperialist from Anchorage, Alaska. Somebody, you guys have probably seen him in the chats of a lot of great channels, a lot of our little corner of the internet, of anti-imperialists, of communists, of people who are against imperialism and Zionism. What I like about Arturo is that he always keeps it 100% real. He does not hold back, especially when it comes to Israel, because once you get into that topic, oh man, people get scared. And Arturo, check out his channel. His link is in the description. Please show him some love. Give him a subscribe. And he has amazing content out there, calling out a lot of even people on the left who, or quote unquote left, who call themselves anti-imperialists, who call themselves pro-Palestine. And then if you really pay attention to how they talk and what they say, they're Zionists through and through. So go check out those videos. Arturo, how's it going out there in cold Alaska?
Good. It's cold, it's snowy, but that's what it is, it's Alaska.
For sure, man. No, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. I've been wanting to discuss this because there's so much in the news right now about Kanye West, and I feel like so much of the attention has been focused on Jewish people and not so much as Zionism, which is obviously like the system and ideology and that we're targeting, right? Because we're not approaching this from a racial, quote unquote, perspective. We're approaching this from like an ideological perspective, which includes also like Zionism in a sense is like Jewish supremacy, like this idea that that the quote unquote Israelites are superior to the Palestinians who are indigenous to that land. And in many ways, Zionism goes hand in hand with white supremacy. So it's just interesting to see all these people who are branding themselves as, revolutionary leftists, also being like pro-Israel and calling out criticism of Israel. I'm just gonna play a clip, Arturo, of like some of the stuff going on, and then I'm gonna ask for your opinion on the latest stuff going on. What conversations you've been having about that? Because I know there's been a lot going on. I'm gonna just play this clip real quick.
For many Jewish Americans, the hate message scrolling across the Florida-Georgia football game and a building in Jacksonville were flashing warning signs. Anti-Semitism is spreading. The Kanye West tweets, the banners hanging over freeways in Florida and California. In a rare joint statement, the universities of Florida and Georgia denounced the messages, saying, "We are proud to be home to strong and thriving Jewish communities, and we stand together against hate." The New England Patriots owner even ran a PSA during Sunday's games, urging all Americans to stand up to Jewish hate, as anti-Semitic content has surged on Twitter after Elon Musk, who emphasized free speech, took full control. Use of the N-word also jumped 500%.
I think that the narrative that hate speech is free speech, it's sort of winning out right now on these platforms.
The Anti-Defamation League reports 1,431 hate incidents so far this year, more than 2,700 last year. By comparison, 10 years ago, there were 927. Senior Rabbi Sue Shankman says members of her congregation in Washington are worried.
I've had people talk about the potential of moving elsewhere where there might not be anti-Semitism outside of this country. Would they go to Canada?
Fellow Americans who tonight are hoping that their country, their neighbors, will stand by them.
I support and will protect your child, and I hope that you would do the same for mine.
The anti-Semitic messages appear to be protected by the First Amendment. The concern that the messages could turn viral and physical.
So that's kind of like the main, that's sort of like the main narrative around the whole Kanye stuff. Like, it's mainly focused on Jewish people as a quote unquote nation, which, you know, is a whole nother discussion. But there's everything's getting mixed in with Israel and Zionism too. So if you are critical of Israel and Zionism, now all of a sudden it's, you know, anti-Semitic. So what are your thoughts on the whole Kanye thing, and what conversations do you have with people who, especially liberals, who say that criticism of Israel is anti-Semitic?
Well, on the Kanye thing, it's an interesting point that Kanye brings up about Zionism and the media, because when you look at it, there is an overwhelming Zionist influence in the media. And the fact that Kanye was with Def Jam, and I believe he praised, he called him the Leor Cohen of Dior Homme in one of his songs. I did a little bit of research this morning because I knew a little bit about it. Like, I knew about Leor Cohen and Todd Moskowitz, Def Jam. But he makes an interesting point that there is overwhelming Zionist influence in the mainstream media. And again, Kanye talks out of both sides of his mouth, but with what he said about the Zionist influences, he makes an interesting point. You know? Yeah, that guy, Leor Cohen.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about, for people who are unfamiliar with Leor Cohen. You know, I'm from New York. I'm a hip hop head. Like, I'm sure you are too. Like, it's interesting when I talk to old school hip hop heads in New York who have been following the trajectory of the music. It's interesting to see how they mentioned so many times that the music had very revolutionary roots. So it began in the Bronx in the 70s, like DJ Kool Herc, and on Sedgwick Ave in the Bronx. And a lot of the Kool Herc himself came from a Rastafarian, like, revolutionary, anti-imperialist background. We're talking about Jamaicans, Puerto Ricans, Trinis, who had socialist leanings, Dominicans in the Bronx, you know, who were part of the formation of hip hop. And a lot of the hip hop originally was very anti-establishment, was very much against capitalism, against consumer culture, against U.S. imperialism. Out of nowhere, you know, in the 80s, it seems in particular, you have the subversion of hip hop with these Zionists like Leor Cohen, like the people who ended up into Tower Records and Def Jam and all these industries that subverted it. Now it's all about money and jewelry and fame and and you know, so like, what do you think about that?
Well, I think the Zionists have definitely subverted hip hop. I mean, if you look back at it, you have Leor Cohen and Todd Moskowitz and their involvement with Def Jam. Flavor Flav even wrote about that in his book. And you also have the fact that Murder Inc. records were raided, and Leor Cohen and Todd Moskowitz were involved in that, and they almost got Irv Gotti locked up. The TV lawsuit, where Cohen and Moskowitz tried to suppress Cash Money Click by Ja Rule. And now the fact that they own 300 Entertainment, and most of the MCs on that label are mumble rappers. And like, we're talking about Young Thug, we're talking about Megan Thee Stallion, who, by the way, did an advertisement with for Sabra Hummus.
Oh my God.
YNW Melly. We're talking about both Cohen and Moskowitz having an involvement with 300 Entertainment, the Warner Brothers, Interscope Records. You know, so there is a clear Zionist subversion of hip hop. I mean, look at Kendrick Lamar. He calls himself a Hebrew Israelite. He raps over these like trap beats. He mumbles. Every other word he said is "yeah." It's like, he's not Immortal Technique. He's not Notch. He's not Canserbero or El Chohin. Like, there is a clear Zionist subversion of hip hop, and I think this is partly due to Leor Cohen, Todd Moskowitz, and the government, you know, trying to subvert hip hop and divert it away from its revolutionary roots.
Most definitely. I think that's a great rundown. And I think, like you've pointed out as well, it's so many other industries. Like, the thing about it is that, so first of all, let me just kind of break down, because there's a lot of idiots out there who are going to be like, oh, if you're anti-Zionist, it's just code for anti-Jewish and this and that. You can be a Zionist and not be Jewish. For example, the biggest Zionist base in the U.S. is the evangelical church, the right-wing evangelicals all over Latin America and the Caribbean. That's a big problem. Look at Bolsonaro. I mean, his wife showed up to the election with a shirt that said Israel on it. Zionism is a huge problem all over Latin America and the Caribbean. The Zionists were responsible for funding the death squads that murdered indigenous and socialist movements in Latin America and the Caribbean. So it's not limited to Jewish people. And that's the thing. Like, that's the whole framing media manipulation and framing problem, is that the second you criticize Israel, you're anti-Jewish, you're anti-Semitic, but it's like, it goes beyond that. And so with that being said, it's interesting because if you look at the history of the film industry, if you look at the history of the music industry, in particular, you look at the history of media, there are a lot of, objectively, and this is, if this is controversial for you, then go to fucking Rachel Maddow or some shit. Objectively, Jewish people have been very dominant in these industries when it comes to media, when it comes to banking, when it comes to diamond production. That is an objective fact, right? Now, that being said, most of those Jewish people who happen to be Jewish, a lot of a vast majority of them are Zionists, right? Because here's the thing: there are Jews who are anti-Zionist. Very few, and I'll be honest about that. There's a few groups that are anti-Zionist Jews who are very anti-imperialist, very pro-Palestine. Unfortunately, they're a minority. But a vast majority of the Jews in music industry and banking and entertainment and the gold industry, precious jewels, they are Zionists hardcore through and through. And that is just an objective fact. We can break it down industry by industry, and especially when we're talking about media. Viacom, CBS, NBC, Hollywood. Like, there's whole entire documentaries about how Jews created Hollywood in the 20s and 30s, and this is proven fact. This is objective fact. So it's like, it's interesting because in many ways, like, by pointing that out, people are so scared to point that out, and even on the left, like, people are so scared to even touch that. But what I find fascinating is that by pointing out that you can get canceled, right? But that's the ironic part, right? If you're like, oh, Arturo says the Zionists from the media, and because of that, Arturo got canceled. It's just like, it's proving our point. So I don't know. What do you think about that?
No, it's true 100%. Most of the Jews that run like entertainment, hip hop, American football, soccer. I'm talking like Atleti owner Eden Ofer, Liverpool club president Thomas Werner, Dan Friedkin, who owns AS Roma, Patriots owner Bob Kraft, Falcons owner, Atlanta United owner Arthur Blank. They are staunch Zionists. Furriers, David Green from Anchorage, staunch Zionist, right? And I grew up with his son. My brother knows his son. His son plays ball, it's college ball at American U. Staunch Zionists. We're talking politicians. They're staunch Zionists. Jewelry, books, music, media, all the above. They're staunch Zionists. And that's probably the reason why Atleti and Juventus are playing a friendly match in Palestine, in Jaffa, what is properly called Jaffa, in the 48 lands, because of Eden Ofer. They do that every year. Atleti does that every year, and that's why I can't stand Atleti.
Yeah, no, most definitely. Yeah, I don't really. Atletico's very Zionist control. A lot of the sports industries, and it's just interesting to talk about this. I'm just gonna quickly read some of the chats. Thank you all for watching, listening. By the way, let's see, Flame of Liberation. Ironically, it's actually anti-Jewish to say talking about international bankers is quote anti-Semitic, because it would have to imply that they're all Jewish, which you're not. Yeah, exactly. It's like people are just reaffirming like the stereotype by saying that. Shout out to also SCH. There are a lot of Jewish anti-Zionist people, most definitely. We need critical thinking. NBA player Kyrie Irving on Twitter and Instagram linked Hebrews to Negro and was called anti-Semitic and got suspended by the Nets and Nike the other day. Like, dude, like that's crazy. I don't know, man. Like,
I mean,
the fact that,
Silver,
yeah,
we
like
know
it's
who Adam
crazy.
Silver is. Come on now, do we really
Right.
accept that?
Also, Big Teal, not sure, Ramiro, Dr. Ball's other receipts that don't show Jewish Zionists as a majority in those industries. Dr. Ball went over that in answering criticism from Kanye for Icon Jews, Math Hoffa to hip hop and more. I actually did catch that stream. I thought it was pretty good. There were a few things that I disagree with. Jared is awesome. He's a great guy. I tend to be a little bit more on the anti. I think what happens a lot of times is that, like, when you're in a certain media landscape or in a certain industry, like I work construction, I'm completely disconnected from that. So I have a little bit more room to say what I actually think. And I'm not gonna pretend like I know all the answers. But if you look at certain industries, like it's an objective fact that a lot of Zionists, and again, I'm not talking about Jewish people in particular, but Zionists run a lot of industries. Like we can't, why is it that if you were to say the same things about Palestinians, nothing would happen, or Arabs, nothing would happen. But the second you say that about Israelis or Jews, immediately billions of dollars wiped out, canceled. That shows the power that certain groups have over others and in particular industries, like that in and of itself. So, I just think I personally think that the Marxist left has a very weak analysis of Zionism. I think that it comes from a very kumbaya liberal, like, approach. And this is why I like Arturo's content too. And I appreciate him calling out, like, for example, like in the past, you've said, like, you've critiqued China for normalizing Israel, which I 100% agree. I do agree with that. Or critiquing certain socialist movements or causes for normalizing Israel. So I think that's a big problem. What do you think about, like, the relationship between the Western left and Zionism?
Well, the Western left, some factions of it, like the Breonna Joy Grays of the world, the Norman Finkelsteins, Noam Chomskys of the world, and to a lesser extent, some of the people at RBN like Sabby Sabs, they normalize Zionism and they give Zionism that credibility. Yeah, there are Christian Zionists. Yeah, some of the Baptists and the Pentecostals. Yeah. But yeah, no, some of the Western left, they normalize Zionism. I mean, look at Breonna Joy Gray. She gave an interview to Joel Rubin, who is the co-founder of J Street, worked in the Peace Corps, has clear and obvious ties to the Zionist entity, and she gave him a softball interview. She worked for Bernie Sanders, for crying out loud. She works for, like, The Intercept and Pierre Omidyar and Jacobin, who's funded by J Street and the New York Jewish Fund, which is the parent group of J Street. Like, they're clear and obvious links. And then Finkelstein's a two-state solution Zionist. Chomsky's a Zionist who lived on a kibbutz. Bernie's a Zionist. Bernie's not left-wing. He's far-right. Yeah, no, it's true, dude. It's like when I totally agree. When I tell people this, like, people are like, what? Like, because here's the thing, right? I think there's a term that I like to use. It's called, like, a gatekeeper, right? Or it's like an outfielder. I feel like people like Noam Chomsky and Norman Finkelstein, they're like controlled opposition in a way, right? They're kind of like the liberal controlled. They're the liberal exhaust pipe of Zionism, because they're smart, right? They're like, look, we know that Israel is going to get criticism. We know that carrying out genocide against the Palestinians and settlements is going to be critical. So we're going to have these more liberal Zionists be like the bad guys that we hate. Oh, we hate Noam Chomsky. We hate Norman Finkelstein. It's like, you actually listen to what they say, and they're not really like anti-Zion. They're critical of Israel, right? Which is one thing. You can be critical of Israel and still be Zionist, And so I do want to play this clip. This is a clip. It's from what's her name? Katie Halper's channel. It's an interview with Norman Finkelstein. It's called "Should Israel Exist?" So I'm going to play this, and then we'll talk a little bit about that.
Say there exists a fundamental international law prohibiting aggression, and Russia broke it. You can say there's a fundamental international law guaranteeing the people indigenous to an area the right of self-determination, and the Zionists broke it, okay? With the support of Russia, the critical support of Russia at that particular moment, because if Russia had lined up against it, it wasn't clear whether it would pass the General Assembly. It wasn't clear whether the resolution would pass the General Assembly. But in both cases, I can see, so when your listeners start attacking me, I could see circumstances in which a historical experience can trump a legal right. I can see that, where a historical experience, be it of the Jews during World War II or the Russian people during World War II, where that historic experience can trump even a fundamental tenet or a tenet of international law. I can see that. So you can tell me it was illegal, you can tell me it was an act of aggression, and I still say, on the basis of that historical experience, they had the right.
So you think Israel had the right to create a nation in 48?
Israel, at that point, I think it's very hard to separate out the creation of the state from the ideology that underpinned that objective. And the ideology that underpinned it, I think, cannot be justified. As Benny Morris, who was Israel's leading historian for a long time, as he wrote in his book, the vastly expanded book on the Palestinian refugees, it's this huge volume, he says, the idea of transfer, expulsion, the idea of transfer was inbuilt and inevitable in Zionism. That's what he writes. It's inbuilt and inevitable in Zionism. So the question then becomes whether with a different ideology, not the ideology of Zionism, but with a different ideology, might it have been possible to create that Jewish refuge, but still create a place for the Jews there?
You guys hear the word magic? Like so much. He's just. What are your thoughts about that, Arturo?
Wow. Well, he's waffling, mumbling, saying this, saying that. Oh, but this, but that, this, the third, and the other thing. It's like, dude, he's less coherent than AOC. He is less coherent than Harry Kane in a post-game press conference. He is less coherent than the Young Thug song. Like, come on, bro. Like,
he's a mumble rapper.
Exactly. He's a mumble rapper. He's just like a mumble rapper. Exactly. Like, he's saying, Finkelstein's a Zionist. Both him and Katie Halper are Zionists, Finkelstein's a Zionist for sure. As you've seen, I've done a video on him, exposing him as a two-stater liberal Zionist. But that's what he is. As you said, Chomsky, Finkelstein, Brianna Joy Gray, Katie Halper, Ryan Grimm, Matt Duss, Mona El-Tahawi, Jim Zogby. We can go on and on. Jamal Bowman, all these gatekeepers, Raphael Warnock. I'd probably put Forrest Dunbar in there too. They're all these gatekeepers that are gatekeeping for the Zionists to try to manipulate, the synthetic left into liberal Zionism. That's
most
purpose.
Definitely. I totally agree. And the fact that I think, as somebody mentioned right here, Balthazar said, wow, word salad to say Zionism is okay. Exactly. Like, if somebody were to ask me, like, straight up, does Israel have a right to exist? Hell no. Fuck out of here.
No way.
Easy. Like, it's not that complicated, right? And that's the thing, like, with a lot of these liberal Zionists, like, they always use these word salads, this word magic, to be like, well, theoretically, if we change the theory and the refuge, then they start, instead of using the word settlement, they use refuge, right? What is a refuge? A settlement for, people who don't belong in that land. And even if you read the Old Testament, I actually just finished reading, right now I'm reading the Quran. I just finished the Old and the New Testament. And if you read the Old Testament, you look at the language of the Israelites talking about the Philistines or the Palestinians as like, we're going to kill them and take their land. Like this stuff is, the Zionist talking points are taken from the Old Testament and put on steroids. And it's just crazy to see that. And I feel like the role of these kind of liberal Zionists within the media realm is to kind of be like, oh, okay, guys, we're like the bad boys. We're like the bad kids. Like, we're critiquing Israel, listen to us. Because then once you start taking your anti-Zionism from other people, from, Assad, from Ahmadinejad, from fucking based ass people, then that's when they get scared. Because then those are the people who actually point out like real shit about Zionism that then they never want you to hear about, Yeah. No, so it's, it's interesting. It's really, Red Horizon said that whole interview with Finkelstein was a slow motion train wreck, including him saying it's up to the Palestinians to defend themselves and BDS is dumb. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the points that Arturo makes in his videos, that like he described BDS as like a cult, and it's just how fucked up is it to, to talk shit about. And mind you, this is somebody who's like making money from like speaking tours and doing like getting paid for word salads around the world. And a lot of people, every time I bring up Palestine, people are like, oh, you got to listen to Norman Finkelstein. You got to listen to Noam Chomsky. I'm like, I'm good, bro. I'll listen to fucking Hassan Nasrallah. I'll listen to Ahmadinejad. Like, I'm good. Like, I'm not gonna, what I'm saying? Like, so that they're like controlled opposition,
Exactly. They're controlled opposition.
Yeah. So it's just really interesting. So that's kind of like the one face. That's like the one face of Zionism that I think is really important to critique. The other face of Zionism that's equally as vicious, but is a little bit more overt, are obviously the neocons. If you look at the neoconservatives, Bill Kristol or Irving Kristol, and Bill Kristol, I think, is the son of Irving Kristol. You look at the Bush administration. You look at what's his name, Elliot Abrams, who served under Trump. Like, all these Zionists are the most pro-war fucking people ever, and they're the ones all over the media who are all talking about like, we need to bomb Iran. They hate Iran. Like, that, I find that like so crazy. It's like they hate Iran so much. They're so scared of Iran. They want us to get into war with Iran, and they're all over the media. They run a lot of the White House politics. They run a lot of the military-industrial complex. This is one guy. I don't know if you've heard of him, Arturo. His name is Mort Klein. He's the president of a beautiful organization called the Zionist Organization of America. I'm going to play a little bit of this, and we'll react to some of what he's saying.
To label the ongoing Arab war against Israel, not as a land or a border issue, but as nothing less than old-fashioned anti-Semitism and Jew hatred. That's all it is. I am personally getting sick and tired of leaders around the world continually telling us what we may want to hear, but not the truth which we need to hear. They tell us, as long as you Israelis give a little more land, a little more money, a little more restraint, a little more appeasement, we can have peace, they tell us, in the Middle East. We can have the Arab war against Israel end. But now let me state my opinion about the truth. The Arabs don't want peace with the Israeli Jewish state. They never wanted peace with the Jews of Israel. And let me tell you something else. As much as we all want Israel to have peace with the Arabs, Israel can and will survive and thrive without it, as they have since 1948. We don't have to have it as much as we want it. God said we're an eternal people. Nevertheless, President Obama and the nations of the world think differently. They wrongly believe that the Palestinian Arabs and the Arab Islamic nations really want peace. And all Israel has to do is stop building homes in East Jerusalem, Judea and Samaria, give up most of the land there, and set up a state. But land, of course, is not the issue. Israel has given up all of Gaza, half of Judea and Samaria, where 99% of the Arabs live. Have things gotten better? They've only gotten worse. And Obama and Hillary Clinton are pressuring only Israel and Netanyahu relentlessly, making no serious demands on the Palestinian Authority to end incitement, arrest terrorists, or outlaw terrorist groups. In the past year, Joe Biden publicly used the word, "I condemn Israel for building in East Jerusalem." Hillary Clinton said she called it an insult that Israel is building in East Jerusalem. She said it's destructive of the peace process, asking, is Israel really serious about peace? That's what Hillary Clinton says, when Israel has made all the concessions and offered even more. David Axelrod called it in the front. And President Obama himself, when he was in Indonesia, publicly in Indonesia, condemned Israel for announcing building Jewish homes in a Jewish neighborhood in eastern Jerusalem. And where was he when he made this statement? He was in Indonesia, a major Muslim country that doesn't even allow Jewish Israelis to enter Indonesia. How powerful and important it would have been if Obama had strongly urged this Muslim country there to accept the Jewish state of Israel, to allow its citizens to enter Indonesia, and urge them to condemn radical Islamic terrorism. Why doesn't Obama publicly urge the leaders of the Muslim countries to have a major press conference, urge the imams and the sheikhs, the Muslim imams and sheikhs, to have a press conference to publicly condemn radical Islamic terrorism as a nightmare and an outrage? Why doesn't he make that demand?
This guy's a fucking clown, man.
Clown.
And this
Such a
freeze
clown.
that's now being demanded for the second time. Not only did it do nothing for the first 10 months, they didn't negotiate, they didn't arrest terrorists, they didn't end incitement, but it sends a phony message that settlements are the problem, that's why there's no peace. It makes the world focus on that.
Oh my God.
In 1937, the Arabs were offered a state by the Peel Commission. They were offered 95% of the rest of Palestine outside of Transjordan. They said no. In 48, they were offered a state. They said no. In 2000, 2008, they were offered a state. They said no every time.
I feel like the bow tie makes him look extra like fucking annoying.
This is simply evil, despicable, disgusting, Nazi-like Jew hatred.
There's
they
the
don't
word.
want the Jews to have a state. That's what this is about.
Ironically,
And this
they
is so
fund the
racist.
8th Battalion, the Zionists do.
Right, yeah. No, it's crazy like how it's just so predictable at this point. Just their talking points. And I just also want to read what some of the people were mentioning as well in the chat. The violent Arab trope, exactly. Even when they use when they talk about Israel, they talk about a light in a world of darkness, or just like some really like fucked up shit. Stray Fit said, God said I'm special, so I can kill who I want. That's fucking hilarious. Yeah, no, exactly. That's like the logic. Stern said, playing the victim too. Dude, that's such a big part of it. I actually made a video a while back about that called the Israeli victim complex or narrative. Flame of Liberation. Zionism is 100% anti-Arab. That's why they work with Persians and Turkish to try to contain Arab power. U.S. policy during Cold War relied on the three regional non-Arab states, Israel, Turkey, Iran. Big Teal. Oh, the shoot. Oh, that's hilarious. Like in Iraq when they threw
George Bush.
Yeah, exactly.
Palestine. Facts. Yep, exactly.
Yeah. So what? So I feel like I wanted to show that because first we showed Norman Finkelstein, who's kind of like the liberal outfielder, like gatekeeper for Zionism, and then there's like Mort Klein, who's the president of the fucking Zionist organization America. That he's like through and through. Like if he could bomb Iran today, like he would do it, with his little bow tie. That's like the hardcore Zionist Then you have like the Norman Finkelstein, Noam Chomsky's. So I feel like it's kind of like this good cop, bad cop dynamic where this is part of the media manipulation of Zionism, where it's like we're presented with these two false dichotomies, but they're both Zionists at the end of the day. They both recognize Israel. They both legitimize Israel. They have different criticisms or this and that. Maybe some of them want Israel to be like a liberal, hipster, democratic paradise. Others want to bring it back to like the Old Testament days. So, what do you think about like looking past this whole dichotomy of like these two good cop, bad cop, liberal, conservative Zionists?
Yeah, looking past that, well, to quote the great Ali Salam, who you've had on your show, and I'm a huge fan of his. I've seen American Husseini. He helped get me down initially the straight path, watching his American Husseini. It's about the Jewish supremacy. You mentioned Iran. And why do you think they have Purim, it's like the Persophobic, Persophobic ideology that the Zionists have. But yeah, these guys are like Jewish supremacists, and they talk all about anti-Semitism. Guess what? These European Jews, they're not Semitic. They're Germanic. They're Slavic. They're from, some of them happen to be from the Caucasus. Some of them happen to be Sephardic, which are Hispanic or Lusophone, Spanish, Portuguese, or they're from the Balkans. Like some are Turkic, like only a small percentage of Jews, which are from Syria, Yemen, and certain parts of North Africa, including like Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, and some neighborhoods of Egypt, of Cairo, Egypt, are actually Semitic. The rest of them are Slavic, Germanic, Lusophone, Hispanic, Turkic, or Kartvelian, Georgian, like that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
And Flame of Liberation pointed that out too. Like Arabs are Semites. Arabs are 100% Semites. So the Zionists are the real anti-Semitic ones.
Exactly.
And they're funding, they're funding these Nazis in Ukraine as well. Like the Zionists are providing weapons and money to the Azov battalion. It's like it's absurd how they say they fearmonger about Nazi this, Nazi that. Then you're giving all these weapons and money to like real Nazis in Ukraine.
Yeah. No, it's like that's the thing. Like the state of Israel, like they fund so much shady shit all over the world. Like it's interesting because in the 80s, like my family's from Honduras and Central America, very small country, very poor country. During the 80s in Central America, man, shit was crazy, dude. Like fucking right-wing death squads. Israel, the only two countries that were training the Honduran military to kill like the communist insurgency was it was a few of them actually. It was the U.S. of course, Taiwan,
of course,
Israel, Chile under Pinochet,
of course,
and I think it was also South Korea, like under the Moonies.
Not surprised.
You had like this coalescence of evangelical Zionists, of like Latin American Zionist, Israel, and Israel played a big role in the Guatemalan genocide in the 80s as well, backing Efraín Ríos Montt, who was a actual genocidal dictator backed by the U.S. He wasn't Jewish; he was evangelical Christian, but Zionist through and through. Israel trained the Guatemalan death squads to murder the indigenous Maya who were fighting back against the government. And they were teaching the Guatemalan death squads the same techniques that they were using against Palestinians. And they would refer to the Guatemalan indigenous people as Palestinos, or like, or they would, so it's like, it's purely like racism, actual racism, like genocidal hate of indigenous peoples. And just like ridiculous, Tian Wang said, Romero, do not call Taiwan a country. Yeah, my fault. Yeah, of course. No, of course. Taiwan is China, of course. But yeah, like, that's the thing, like with Israel, like they don't have as bad of a reputation in international, like a lot of people know about Palestine, and of course, like 100% solidarity with Palestine and of course the Middle East. But like when you look at Israel's role in South Africa with the diamond industry, you look at Israel's role in Latin America with the death squads. You look at even in Indonesia, which he referenced earlier, one of the earliest companies to colonize Indonesia was the Dutch East India Company, who had a lot of people in it who were Jewish that were the antecedents of Zionism who wanted to create a Jewish homeland. Some wanted to do it in Indonesia, actually, because it was a very key trading post. So it's just interesting. Like, what bothers me, dude, it's like you and I, like, again, right? I'm not trying to say like I know everything, but I fucking done my homework, bro. Like, I've studied this shit. Like, I've studied so much history, especially when it comes to Zionism, and like when people, whenever you point out stuff like, yeah, Zionists run the media, like that's an objective fact. They're like, oh, you need to study and do. It's like, yeah, I have, and you look at the actual facts, and they run a lot of shit. Like, it's just it's just crazy, you know.
Exactly. Like, they run literally everything, like sports, fashion, media, hip hop, books, TV. Yeah, no, it's absurd. Like, it's absurd how much they run, from like David Green first to Atletico de Madrid to like Interscope Records. You know, it's like they run everything, you know?
Yeah.
And,
no,
most
definitely.
With the Pentecostals, like, there is an increased presence of Pentecostals in Latin America. And Latino Pentecostals in the U.S. Like, there's una iglesia pentecostal y una iglesia bautista aquí en mi ciudad. Pues yo sé, so I know, you know, because there's Old Seward, like, there's a Latino Pentecostal church.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, and they're
crazy.
absurd, because, you know, I'm part Hispanic too. My family's from Spain, and they're absurd. It's like, it's hard to reason with those guys. It's like, wow.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. Even a block away from my house, dude, like, there's a big ass Pentecostal church, and it has like a huge Star of David on it, and it's like, we love Israel. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, this is an actual operation. But then here's the ironic part with a lot of these Latino Zionists. I want to do like a whole section at some point. Maybe we could do a little documentary or some shit at some point. But I want to do like a series about Latino Zionism, and especially with like the Pentecostals and the evangelicals. But what I find fascinating about it, dude, is like, it's so many people who have this like self-hating, colonized mindset, who like, and a lot of times, like, maybe they're brown, or maybe they're like indigenous, or
like
whatever.
A chasing horse.
And they want, and they want to be like light skinned so bad. They want to be Israeli so bad, and then like, if you were to bring these Latino Zionists to quote unquote Israel, to occupied Palestine, they would look at them like, who the fuck are you? You're not even human. You know, according to the Zohar and the Talmud, you're not even an equal human being as I am, you know? So it's like, it's just mind boggling to me that they act like that. And the other thing that the Zionists, when it comes to media manipulation and control, the other thing that they really control well is color revolutions. I think color revolutions in particular are a Zionist like hallmark. Like, that is their shit. Like, that is their, going back even to the Rothschild family, where you have the Rothschilds funding both sides of a war to profit from it, right? Funding the French and Napoleon, and funding also the British, and making money from both sides. And I feel like in many ways, this happens so much all over the world, where even they'll have certain anti-war groups that have Zionists in them, right? But then you look at their talking points, and it's like, oh, I support the feminist protests in Iran. You know, I'm pro Cuba and I'm pro Venezuela, but I'm against Iran, and they create this wedge in our movements. I'm like, hold up, like, I spot them a mile away, you know. And it's exactly. Yeah, so it's like,
I'm all too familiar with them.
Yes, I call it code pink imperialism.
AYEA, all of them.
Yeah. No, it's a real shame, dude. And a lot of people don't really see it. So I just want to play a clip. This is one of the quote unquote feminists that the Iranian feminists that mainstream media is upholding as a revolutionary, as a leftist. She was at the Zionist, the ADL Virtual National Summit earlier this year, before the quote unquote uprising. I just want to play a little bit of what she said. It's just really disgusting. This is for the ADL, fuck the ADL, one of the Zionist entities that uses this whole anti-Semitism bullshit to cancel people. So I'm going to play this, and then we'll talk a little bit about that.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Masih Ali Nejad. I'm an Iranian-American journalist, a TV presenter, author, women's rights activist, and a troublemaker for the oppressors in Iran. Actually, the oppressors have different names for me. They call me the agent of CIA, the agent of MI6. They even call me the agent of Mossad as well. I don't know how come at the same
You're at an
time
ADL
I
summit.
work for different agents around the world. And I want to actually thank the ADL for giving me such an opportunity to come here and tell you about the women in Iran who become like the biggest nightmare of the clerics in the Islamic Republic. But before telling you about my story, I want to tell you that the Iranian regime for years and years telling these mothers, women, students, children that our biggest enemy is America. As you know, of course, Israel as well. I grew up in a tiny village, was brainwashed to say death to America, death to Israel. But after years and years, those mothers, women, children, students, I myself, we know that our biggest enemy is the Islamic Republic.
Oh my God.
So when I left Iran, I launched a campaign. First, I started to share my own story, that how I was brainwashed myself. Then my story encouraged many other women within the society. I launched a campaign against forced hijab. As you see, I have too much hair. So I was forced to cover them all. When I shared a picture of myself without hijab, I got bombarded by women within the society, sharing their photos and videos unveiled. Don't get me wrong. We are not fighting against a small piece of cloth. For us, hijab is one of the most pillar of a religious dictatorship. For us, hijab,
Dude, she's reading
in
from
the
a
hand of
fucking
the
speech
regime,
too. Like you
is
see
like
her
the
turning the
Berlin
page
Wall.
on the.
So that is why many women within the society, they started to join the campaign because they want to get rid of the religious dictatorship. For us, compulsory hijab is the most visible symbol of oppression. As you see, women in Afghanistan or women who were suffering ISIS, from the first time when they get free, they burn their forced veil. For more than 40 years, the Islamic Republic of Iran stamped its own ideology on our bodies. When you go to Iran or Afghanistan, when you see women under the control of Taliban, ISIS, Islamic Republic, you understand that we are forced to carry the ideology of religious dictatorship. So our campaign is about to be our true self, to be the one that we want to be. It's about our dignity. But how ironic that many Western feminists around the world, our sisters, they keep silent because they think that if we talk against compulsory hijab, we talk against the brutality of Sharia laws, then we're causing Islamophobia. And I'm here to tell you that as a woman who grew up under forced hijab, who grew up under control of Islamic Republic, that we don't have freedom of religion, freedom of expression, freedom of speech, I am scared of Islamic Republic. I am scared of Taliban, and I am scared of ISIS.
So she compared Iran to the Taliban and ISIS. Just complete nonsense. Shout out to Comrade Salifu. Ramiro, this is torture. My fault. No, we got to expose. Here's the thing. Like, this is what majority of people are saying, like, especially with this Iran stuff. Like, and this is all, like, again, she's talking to the ADL, one of the Zionist organizations. Like, these are Israeli Mossad talking points. And now the entire Western left is repeating it. Like, they have us under a fucking lull and a trance. Even quote unquote leftist groups, revolutionary groups, anti-imperialists, they're like, it's complicated. It's like some Norman Finkelstein shit. It's complicated. No, like, I'm in solidarity with Iran against Western imperialism, and that's it, and it's like, like, what are your thoughts on the whole Iran stuff and the role of Israel?
Well, I think she looks familiar. I think I seen her like in some CIA poster or something.
Probably. Yeah.
Probably, but she's like, no, these are these like fugazi feminists, like You know, these because like these Zionists pushed the color revolution. You know, they were pushing Arab Spring, they were pushing Euromaidan. Now they're pushing the shit in Iran, and it's like now all these like Western like, you know, Portland State, Reed College, like G.I. Jane looking people. Like, yeah.
Blue hairs.
I remember when you showed, what was it? The color revolution, and you had the picture of that one G.I. Jane woman.
Yeah.
Like, yo, that shit was a mind trip. Like, I was like, yo, like people in Iran have, like, women have had freedom in Iran since like 1979. Like,
right.
Like people in Iran that had freedom since they overthrew the Shah and the Pahlavis and all that. Like, you know, like women wear hijab. Yeah, women are religious, but it's not like women weren't, you know, having rights, weren't getting short haircuts. Like they were before that. And there is evidence on Instagram. There's evidence on Facebook of that. You know, like this is the Zionists pushing, you know, their agenda. And you know, they're this is the mind trip they want the Americans to believe in. You know, they want the Americans to back this color revolution, and Austrians and Germans, and I've had countless interactions with Westerners and even Iranians living in the West believe in this mind trip, and it's like, yo, bro, like it's kind of obvious to see through it, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's obvious to us, right? But unfortunately to a lot of liberals, this is the problem with postmodernism, that they, you know, everything truth is, it's not the truth, it's your truth. What's my truth? You know, it's like, I feel, how do you feel? I feel, you know, it's like all this nonsense. It's like, as people, you know, on the left, as socialists or whatever, like anti-imperialists, like we believe in an objective reality and an objective truth. And it's not like based on just individual subjective testimony. And that's a problem, because so much of the Western left is influenced by individual testimonies. Like, well, I know this one lady who you know, where I know this one guy who It's like, how, you know, we're basing it off of that and off of like objective facts, which is that Iran is being attacked by Israel, the US, the UK, and they are salivating at the mouth of overthrowing Iran, of enslaving the They want Iran to be drugged up. They want Iran to be on OnlyFans. They want Iran to be distracted, listening to fucking dumbass fucking mumble rappers, buying fucking like $300 Balenciaga shirts, hunched over their phones, watching OnlyFans, drunk and on drugs and distracted. And you know, it's just like that's what they want. And Iran is not like that. Like I know plenty of people in Iran. They know 4 languages. They know philosophy and arts. They know science. You know, like they are in an advanced civilization, and people are just so dumb in the West where they're like, oh, they wear a headscarf, so they're backward and they're dumb, and we need to go in and save them. It's like, you need to save yourself. We need to save. Look at what's going on here. You know.
I mean, look at TikTok. You have all this like thirst trapping, all these trendy ass wannabe trendy Zoomers, like listening to terrible music, thirst trapping, like doing these weird ass dances, trying to be goofy and trendy and stuff. And you know, and then in Iran, you have people following the deen, you know, speaking, like you said, speaking multiple languages. They'll know Farsi, they'll know whatever regional languages, whether that, you know, is Azeri or another regional language like Mandazari, Galaki, like that, Luri, like those regional languages, or they might know like an international language like Spanish, German, Portuguese, English, Italian as well, French maybe. But and they're a million times smarter than Americans. Like the Zionists are trying to dumb down Americans, I think, and Westerners in general.
Of course.
That's why why do you think like Leor Cohen and Todd Moskowitz signed Warner Brothers, Young Thug, Megan Thee Stallion, who does advertisements for Sabra, Young Thug, T Grizzly, YNW Melly? Like, why do you think they sign all of them? Like,
no,
it's trying to dumb us down.
You hit on a crucial point, man. And that being said, there's this clip. One of my favorite. You know, here's the thing, guys. Although I consider myself a communist, I think that I don't necessarily like keep myself pigeonholed within that label, because as I was mentioning earlier, I think that in particular, me personally, I think that the Islamic world has a better critique and understanding of Zionism than the Western left and Marxism, just because of their direct experience with it. And so I listen to a lot of what Muslim YouTube channels, what Muslim commentators say about Zionism, and Shaitan. Even right now that I'm reading the Quran, you know, I'm reading Surat al-Baqarah.
Oh, I read that. Yeah.
You know, and they're talking about like how like Satan, how Satan, and it's so important for anybody who wants to, you know, critique people for pointing out, you know, Zionism and its connections to like Satanism. Read Surah al-Baqarah, which I think is like early part of the Quran, and it talks about how some sector of the Jews, a particular sector, that kept worshiping the calf, kept worshiping the devil and materialism and Satan, that they are the ruling elites, that they ran the second temple, they betrayed the, you know, Abraham, Isaac and Jacob, and Jesus as well. Like this is why Jesus Christ was so despised by the Pharisee, because Jesus was like, yo, what the fuck is going on here? Like, we're at the temple, you guys are like trading money, you guys are doing all these things. What happened to like our actual religion? And so in Surah al-Baqarah, you see the Islamic critique of Zionism as like worshiping like Satan and worshiping indulgence and greed and that religion of like Satanism and Zionism has been infiltrated into hip hop and subverted for that reason, because music is a very powerful, very, very, very powerful like how we're gonna say, like I don't want to say like medium, a spell, but it's like medium. Yeah, it's a very powerful medium. Exactly.
Well, that explains Lil Nas X. You know, Lil Nas X doing what he did with the devil. I did not see it. I heard Lord Jamar talk about it, but doing what he did with the devil, the drop of blood in the Nike shoes. That's why I don't wear Nike, other than the fact that England and America wear them for their national kits. But like, yeah, it's Satanism. And in Islam, you know, before you make namaz, or before you read the Quran, you say, "A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim." I seek guidance and protection in Allah from the shaitan and the outcast. Yeah. So it's the deen, it's the straight path. It's al-sirat al-mustaqim. And al-Baqarah is actually, it's about the cow, because Baqarah means cow in Arabic.
The golden cow, that the calf and the bull that's on Wall Street. You know, I think about that every time I'm reading it. I'm like, you know, Wall Street, you have the golden bull or the calf. You know, a lot of the horned animals that are associated with that. I found this very interesting channel. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's at this point. Shout out to the guys who run it. They haven't posted in a while. I think it's called have you heard of the Vigilant one?
I think I have.
They haven't posted it. They haven't posted in a while. They have a lot of cool videos, like basically an Islamic critique of Zionism, and it's not like this kind of like Wahhabi, you know, like UK, you know, like those UK British Muslims who are like Zionists, like Wahhabi, and like, you know, they hate Iran too, but they're you know, it's not like those guys. These are like I think these guys are from Michigan, from Dearborn.
Okay, so they're probably, if they're Lebanese, there is a chance that they are Shia. Yeah. If they're Iraqi, there is a chance they are Shia.
Yeah, they tend to have better like anti-imperialist politics. So they have this video. It's called "The Tall Israeli," that runs the rap industry. Of course, talking about Lior Cohen or Liar Cohen. I'm gonna play a little bit of this. You know, I'll probably skip around a little bit, but again, guys, just because it's in the video doesn't necessarily mean I 100% agree with everything. You know, before you go and run and like, oh my God, but they do make a lot of good points in the video. I'm gonna play this and we'll talk a little bit more about that.
Old white men is running this rap shit. Corporate force is running this rap shit. Some tall Israeli is running this rap shit. We poke out our asses for a chance to cash in. Cocaine is running this rap shit. Joe Yak and E-pills is running this rap shit. This rap shit. Quasi-homosexuals is running this rap shit. What, yo? We're running the world.
So it said this song was made by Mos Def, aka Yasin Bey, his version of the Jay-Z song "The Takeover." In Jay-Z's song, Jay boasts about how he and his record label and artists run the rap industry. Mos Def says in his song that artists don't really run anything, and old white men and some Sorry, I went too fast. But who's this tall Israeli that Mos Def speaks of? The tall Israeli who runs the music industry, Leor Cohen. The song "The Rape Over" was included in Mos Def's 2004 album, The New Danger, but strangely the song was missing from many of the copies of the album. Missing rap song sparked suspicious musings. Excerpts from the book "It's Bigger Than Hip Hop: The Rise of the Post-Hip Hop Generation." So basically, this track that was pointing out a lot of the Israeli Zionist control over the music industry was removed from the album. Leor Cohen has been active in the music industry since 1984. Interesting year. He has been a pioneer in the development of hip-hop music and influential in the development of hip-hop musical acts, including the Beastie Boys, Foxy Brown, L, Cool J, Jam Master Jay, Nas, Run DMC, and others. Big Teal, this music though, but interesting. Yeah, no, I felt the same. There's some interesting points in it though. So that's Leor Cohen right here. Most recently, he's been behind artists like Young Thug, Migos, and Fetty Wap, all which are artists that promote brainless rap music, blurring of the genders, and drugs. There's him right there in the back. There's him throwing up. Back in 2010, Leor famously addressed Lupe Fiasco fans back when they were protesting against Atlantic Records, who were not releasing Lupe's album Lasers. The label wanted Lupe Fiasco to make music that was negative and detrimental to society, but Lupe wouldn't oblige.
I feel that, but why we gotta wait for the CD then?
Because don't you want it real good?
Yeah, but he been gave it to you like 2 years ago.
Leor downplays the actual power and significance he has in the rap world.
Yo, who's this?
Hold up. This is the Drink Champs, the #1 podcast in the business. And right now we're talking to, hands down, the most important man, in my opinion, in the whole music game. He's a mogul. He's been doing this. He personally signed me and taught me how to be a man with money. Right now, we got Leor Cohen on the line. Let's make some noise! Yo, Leo, I gotta big you up off top, man.
Well, I want to address the comment you made about mogul. I don't consider myself a mogul.
He's like, you're spilling the beans, man.
I prefer if you could replace mogul with humble servant.
Notice that Leor Cohen doesn't call what he does a quote job and takes some offense to Nori calling him a mogul because he would like to keep the spotlight off of himself. Leor prefers to be called a servant, but what agenda and purpose does he serve? Young Thug, one of Leor's artists that is pushing the gay and transgender agenda. Fetty Wap, another artist that Leor Cohen helped mold, doing the One Eye Pose, which in the hadiths, in the Islamic hadiths, the Dajjal, or like the one of the Antichrist, usually is pictured with like one eye. So, in 2014, Dame Dash became very vocal about his issues with Leor Cohen. He blamed Leor for the breakup of Rockefeller Records, amongst many other things.
My beef was with Leor because I think he's a fake CEO, and I think he's fronting on my culture, but he can't front on anybody else. and I'm calling him out publicly, and I want him to stop trying to rape my culture, go make some money with some other people. They have people that their job is to create beef so that they can monetize it, pause, but they don't let their culture feel it, but they make money from it, and they can't make any money or get any respect in their culture. That's why they're in our culture. It is what it is. It's a perfect example of what they always do to us. They always try to, offer some paper bag of money or whatever it is, whatever selfish agenda, which is the test, and then have us divide so they can benefit and take the fight off of them and put the focus on them. Never had a beef with Jay, always with Lior and his whole crew. He's the one that ruined Rockefeller. I think it's fair to continuously make money off our culture, not make money off your own culture, not use any of your money to help our culture, but use the money you make from us to help your own culture, and then not to give the respect to the people that are the DNA of. Call Kevin Lowndes.
I don't think I've ever seen a Leo Cohen interview.
Exactly. Of course you don't see. Of course you don't see the puppet master. I don't like who he empowers and the way he empowers them. I didn't like when he hired Todd Moskowitz to run Asylum. I didn't think Todd, as a lawyer, knew anything about music. It just seemed like complete nepotism, and he was using other people's money. He got a job because of nepotism. Ask them why they got their jobs. That's what I want to see. How did Joey get the job president of Urban, and what does that mean? I need to see credentials, and I have to worry about being manipulated by somebody that's smiling, pretending that he's with you, but he's robbing you. Because when they rob you, they don't come as an enemy, they come as a friend.
Yep.
But I've been to these Jewish events, and I have nothing against Jewish, where I've seen them make Jay-Z gift speeches. And I've been like, well, I don't understand why that doesn't happen in my culture. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll tell you right now, stay clear of Lior. He will rob you. He will ruin you for the money. And when you're with him, you look like a slave, because that's how he looks at you. Trust me on that.
So again, this is where, they go on. Check it out on YouTube. I'll see if I could put the link in the description. It's a really cool channel called The Vigilant One. Again, I don't 100% agree with everything, but a lot of great points that they mention in there, including about how they control you, right? They don't come as your enemy, they come as your friend and try to control you. So what do you think about that, Arturo? What are your thoughts on that?
I think Dame Dash is onto something there. I think he's correct that these Zionist culture vultures that serve a Zionist agenda are infiltrating hip-hop, subverting hip-hop. And I think this video is correct when they call out that little mumbler, young Thug.
Yeah.
And then if you look at the other MCs that are on 300 Entertainment, Megan Thee Stallion, who literally did an advertisement for Sabra Hummus, T Grizzly, YNW Melly, like, there is a clear agenda. There is a clear agenda that Lior Cohen is pushing, this mumbling, buy your Balenciaga, drinking your alcohol, like satanic haram kind of things that Lior Cohen is pushing. And this video basically exposes what Lior Cohen is about, what Todd Moskowitz is about, and Dame Dash, exposed them as well. And I agree 100% that it's this degenerate satanic agenda.
Yeah, dude, 100%, man. I'm glad I could talk to you about this, dude, because honestly, a lot of people on the left, when I talk to them about this, they don't understand it. Like, even the word satanic, for example, like, it has taken me time to really understand. And it's interesting because, like, for many years, I would have considered myself an atheist, like like communist hardcore. As I study more and as I read more and as I understand reality, especially as I'm reading the Quran as well, and like the critique of shaitan, of Satan and evil, like there is evil in this world, like when I look at Lior Cohen, when I look at Netanyahu, when I look at these people, I see the Antichrist, I see like Satan, because who else would want this high level of magic, of like destruction, is nothing other than evil, because obviously I understand that, like, when I tell people that, they're like, oh, scientific socialism. I still consider myself a scientific socialist. I've read Capital. I have it right here. I understand the mechanics of capitalism. I understand that it's very scientific. There's an explanation for it, but that doesn't rule out that's like the literal material level, right?
The economic side
oppression.
of it.
There's that's the economic side of it. On top of that, there's the spiritual side of it,
religious side,
where
exactly.
where it's like it's such a high level of oppression that people are. It's fucking insane. Like they want everybody distracted, dumb, fat, unproductive, wanting jewelry, wanting money, wanting things that have no value, wanting to cause wars, wanting to invade, go into Russia and bomb Russia, go into Iran and bomb Iran. It's like, it's just so like crazy to me. Like there's so many spells happening at the same time. And I feel like Zionism, media manipulation, imperialist corporate news, like the people at the top who are creating these spells, these magicians, like they are some next level fucking evil, and so that's why it's always, I do enjoy talking to you about this, because we can kind of talk about both, right? We can talk about the economics and the politics of it, but I lose a lot of my comrades when I start talking about it in the spiritual level, and that's why I think, me personally, I think in particular the Islamic world has a better understanding, a better critique of Zionism and money in so many ways. What do you think about that?
Oh, I agree 100%. And I actually started learning about Islam in like 2019. Like my parents were like hardcore atheists. My mom's kind of a hippie baby boomer.
Yeah.
My dad's like a trust fund, neocon type of guy. So and I grew up militant atheist, as a kind of militant atheist, but kind of Unitarian. It's kind of weird, But I started learning about Islam in like 2019, and then it's like, yo, this makes sense. And then, like before, I would go regularly to the masjid before the pandemic hit, and I'm trying to go back. Obviously, the transit system here in Anchorage sucks, but it makes so much sense. When you talk about the evil side versus the financial side of, of communism and stuff.
Yeah.
The evil side definitely exists. Like, how do you think Leor Cohen, Todd Moskowitz, Netanyahu, Bernie Sanders, how do you think they get so evil? How do you think Breonna Joy Gray, Norman Finkelstein, Katie Halper, Ryan Grimm get so evil?
Yeah.
And what did Vinny Paz say? He said, "You can't know God without knowing Shaitan."
Yeah. Dude, that's such a... It's something like that. Yeah. I forgot the name of that song.
Yo,
yeah, I know. He has some great music.
Like Faith Healer. I was listening to Faith Healer. I'm like, yo, this makes sense. Like, I need to. I was just reaffirming to myself today. I was like, yo, I need to follow the Dean and stuff. Like, but yeah, no, dude, you bring up a great point. Like, there's the financial side and there's the spiritual religious side, and yeah, these capitalists, these Zionists, these imperialists, they are the next level of evil.
Yeah, no, most definitely, dude. With that said, man, I have to head out. I really appreciate speaking to you. I'd love to have you back on soon. I'd like to have a conversation with you, maybe Ali Salam, maybe some other comrades that I have too. I think your analysis is on point, man. I really appreciate it. People, please go and subscribe to Arturo. His channel description is in the video. Really great videos out there. Are you hoping to do some more videos on your channel, or like?
I'm hoping to. Yeah, I want to analyze Vinny. Vinny Paz has a mixed record on his bars.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you have Emperor's Clothes, which sounds crypto Zionist. Like when in the last part, which says you're the lone asshole throwing rocks at a tank. But then he has the Keeper of the Seven Keys is when y'all was fucking around with Bush, I was running with Saddam, puffing on the cushion, building with the Imam. He's got a mixed record. So I want to see if he's actually a Gulenist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I also want to do something about, because you mentioned about like indigenous people being Zionists, and there's a church in Utqiagvik with like a Zionist flag in it. I seen it because I seen on, Kupaks by Kareem, which is the fashion company up in Utqiagvik. I seen that and I'm like, that's a mind trip. Like a town that's mostly Inupiaq. And I think it's a Presbyterian church. It has a Zionist flag. And then also I want to do a video exposing Quanah Chasing Horse, like the rock star Han Gwich'in supermodel from the interior of Alaska, like who's like a supermodel. Like she did her and her boyfriend who's from Res Dogs Pharaoh Wuntai, who's like Grenadian and like indigenous, half Caribbean. Like they did a video with Zionist Natalie Portman.
Yeah.
And then like a couple weeks ago when they were here in town for AFN, which is like the big Native Federation like convention, it's Alaska Federation of Natives convention. Like they were treated like celebrities. That shit's a mind trip.
Yeah.
Like
no, it's crazy, dude.
It's I want to do a video about that because I feel like there's something to that. And get this, Quanah Chasing Horse's mom, Jody Potts, is on Life Below Zero First Alaskans and was a VPSO up in the interior and I think Eagle.
Wow.
And VPSOs are like the rural, like really rural versions of cops. Like that shit's a mind trip.
Yeah.
Like,
damn, that's crazy, man. I definitely got to check that out. I also, I want to learn more about Alaska too, because I'm down here in the lower 48.
Lower 48, yeah.
So it's like I've always wanted to go to Alaska. So if I do go up there, I'll hit you up, man.
Dude,
always a pleasure talking to you, bro. Thank you so much for joining. Please subscribe to Arturo's channel. Shout out to everybody who's watching and listening. A shout out to Flame of Liberation, to Zach, to Ware Pilgrim, to everybody, Big Teal, everybody who's watching, listening. Thank you guys so much. Long live the Palestinian resistance, the Arab resistance, the all the peoples, oppressed peoples all over the world resisting Zionism. Death to Israel, death to the U.S. Down with imperialism, down with the satanic global religion of capitalism, of imperialism, of the golden calf on Wall Street. That is our enemy, not a particular people, but a particular mindset of evil. Thank you guys so much. We're going to go out to some music. Peace, everybody. Have a great weekend and take care. Bye.
وعيونك عم تذبح نار رح تبقى لواء التحدي يا ثامن جيش المغوار ممنوع الإرهاب يعدي وعيونك عم تذبح نار رح تبقى لواء التحدي يا ثامن جيش المغوار عم تفدي الوطن بدماتك والنصر مرافق جولاتك جنودك على الجبهات اسود باقي مغوار بوقفاتك عم تفدي الوطن بدماتك والنصر مرافق جولاتك جنودك على الجبهات اسود باقي مغوار بوقفاتك ممنوع الارهاب يعدي وعيونك عم تذبح نار رح تبقى لواء التحدي يا ثامن جيش المغوار يا ثامن صايم بوجودك أرضي وعما تحمي الدار بالميدان بتحكي زنودك مهما يشتد العصار يا ثامن صايم بوجودك أرضي وعما تحمي الدار بالميدان بتحكي زنودك مهما يشتد العصار ممنوع الإرهاب يعدي وعيونك عم تذبح نار رح تبقى لواء التحدي يا ثامن جيش